Imagine the silence of a graveyard, 12,000 feet in the sky. It is October 13th, 1972. You are 19 years old. Your plane has just been torn in half. You are surrounded by the bodies of your friends. There is no heat, no food, no hope. The world thinks you are dead. They stopped looking for you 6 days ago. Now look at your friend's body. To live one more hour, you have to do the unthinkable. This is not a horror movie. This is the 72-day fight for survival that redefined the limits of the human soul. It began as a celebration. The Old Christians Club, a Uruguayan rugby team, chartered a Fairchild FH227D to fly to Santiago, Chile for a match. 45 people were on board. Players, family, and friends. They were young, fit, and full of life. But the Andes are a wall of stone and ice that do not forgive mistakes. Due to heavy cloud cover and a fatal navigational error by the pilots, the plane began its descent too early. They weren't over the valley. They were heading straight into the heart of the mountains. When the pilot realized the error, it was too late. He throttled the engines to full power, trying to climb. The nose pulled up, but the tail hit the ridge. In a heartbeat, the wings were sheared off. The fuselage turned into a high-speed sled, screaming down a glacier at 200 miles per hour before slamming into a snowbank. The miracle of the Andes had begun, but first it would be a nightmare. 12 people died instantly. Others were impaled by seats that had crumpled like accordions. Nando Parado, one of the stars of the team, lay in a coma with a fractured skull. His mother was dead. His sister was dying in his arms. The first night was a descent into hell. The temperature dropped to minus 30 degrees. They were at an altitude where the air is thin and every breath is a struggle. They had no winter clothes. They used the seat covers for blankets and huddled together, soaking in the body heat of the person next to them to keep their hearts beating. By morning, 5 more were dead. The survivors were stranded on a glacier nicknamed the Glacier of Tears. They were trapped in a white prison, 11,000 feet above the world. For 11 days, they waited. They organized. They used melted snow for water. They rationed the few bars of chocolate and bottles of wine they found in the luggage. They waited for the hum of an engine, for a flash of metal in the sky. Then, on the 11th day, they heard it on their small transistor radio. The search had been called off. The authorities had declared them dead. Nikolic, one of the survivors, ran into the fuselage to tell the others. "Hey boys," he shouted, "there's good news. They've called off the search." The others looked at him in horror. "How is that good news?" Nikolic replied. "Because it means we are going to get out of here on our own." By the second week, the hunger was no longer a pang. It was an agonizing physical rot. There was no vegetation, no animals, only snow and stone. They were starving to death. Their bodies were consuming their own muscle. They knew what lay outside in the snow, the bodies of their friends and family, preserved by the sub-zero cold. A grim discussion began. It was a debate of ethics, religion, and the raw instinct to survive. Roberto Canessa, the medical student, led the argument. He told them, "This is protein. It is what we need to stay alive. Our friends would want us to live." With a piece of broken glass, they did what they had to do. They broke the ultimate human taboo. They ate the flesh of the dead. It was a communal pact. If any of them died, they offered their own bodies to the others so that someone might make it home. On the 17th night, the mountains tried to finish them. An avalanche struck without warning. A wall of snow blasted through the open end of the fuselage, burying everyone inside. They were buried alive under 3 feet of snow inside their own shelter. Nando Parado felt a foot near his face and bit it, hoping the person would move. For 3 days, they lived in a tomb of snow, breathing through a small hole they poked through to the surface with a pole. When they finally dug themselves out, 8 more people were dead. The survivors were now down to 16. December came. The summer sun was melting the snow, but it was also melting their time. They were getting weaker. They knew no one was coming. They had to go for help. On December 12th, 60 days after the crash, Nando Parado, Roberto Canessa, and Vicentin began the impossible. They started climbing the mountain to the west. They thought they would see a valley on the other side. Instead, when they reached the 15,000-foot summit, they saw more mountains, thousands of them. An endless sea of white. Vicentin gave his rations to the others and headed back to the plane so they would have enough food to continue. Parado and Canessa pushed on. They walked for 10 days. They had no climbing gear, no maps, and were suffering from extreme altitude sickness and exhaustion. On the 9th day of their trek, the white world turned green. They reached a river, and there, across the water, stood a man on horseback. Sergio Catalan, a Chilean muleteer. The world finally knew they were alive. On December 22nd and 23rd, 1972, the final 16 survivors were rescued. They had been trapped for 72 days. The news shocked the world. It was called a miracle, then a controversy, and finally a legend. Today, a simple iron cross stands at the crash site. The survivors return to their lives, becoming doctors, speakers, and fathers. They carry the memories of those they lost and the weight of the choice they made to survive.